You're live with BBC News. One of the world's most powerful drug cartel leaders appeared in a Texas federal court on Friday. Ismael Mayo Zambada, leader of Mexico's Sinaloa cartel, pleaded not guilty on all charges after being arrested by US federal agents in Texas on Thursday. The 76-year-old founded the criminal organization with Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, who is currently jailed in the US. Also arrested Thursday alongside Mr. Zambada was the son of the notorious El Chapo Guzman, Joaquin Guzman Lopez. American prosecutors say the Sinaloa cartel is the biggest supplier of drugs to the United States. US Attorney General Merrick Garland spoke earlier about the cartel leaders' arrests, saying they were responsible for America's fentanyl epidemic.
Fentanyl is the deadliest drug threat our country has ever faced. The Justice Department will not rest until every single cartel leader, member, and associate responsible for poisoning our communities is held accountable.
US media reports that Mr. Zambada, who you see here in this photo taken Thursday and obtained by our US partner CBS News, was tricked by a high-ranking cartel member into boarding a plane that he thought was going to southern Mexico. The plane instead flew to El Paso, Texas, where he and Mr. Lopez were arrested when they landed. It followed a months-long investigation that Mexico says it was unaware of until the arrests were made. Mexico's president is calling for full transparency from the US about the capture. Earlier, I spoke to Mike Vigil, former chief of international operations for the Drug Enforcement Administration. How consequential are these arrests?
Well, they're very consequential in terms of the rule of law, but I don't think that they will have any significant impact on the inner workings of the Sinaloa cartel. And as an example, I will give to you exactly what happened when the leader of the Sinaloa cartel, Chapo Guzman, was extradited to the United States. Had no impact. Mayo Zambada had been running the cartel for a number of years, and they have a very strong bench, very good leaders. The cartel has been in existence since 1989 and is currently the most powerful drug cartel in the world. They operate in 6 of the 7 continents in the world. And Mayo Zambada was very much the Mexican version of Carlo Gambino of Italian organized crime, in that he had never spent 1 hour in a jail cell until yesterday. But other than that, hopefully the United States and Mexico will put aside differences and work together to basically decapitate the cartel, because they need to impact on the infrastructure. I'm talking about corrupt politicians. I'm talking about the money laundering cells, the enforcement cells, the logistical cells, and others to really have an impact.
If I can jump in there, I mean, Mr. Zambada is said to have been one of the leaders of the Sinaloa cartel who had very strong political connections. Will that help achieve, as you said, go after some of the political connections that have helped the cartel survive so long?
That is true. If Mayo Zambada and Chapo Guzman's son, the Chapito, cooperate with U.S. authorities, they can provide a lot of information on very high-ranking government officials in Mexico, to include governors, mayors, members of the security forces. But apart from that, there'll have to be a collection of evidence. It just can't be their testimony alone.
In your experience, how unusual is it for Mexican officials in this case to have been kept out of the loop of this operation?
It's rare, but it does happen on occasion. I think that the decision is made that, if they advise the Mexican government, because of endemic corruption in that country, it could easily get compromised.
One thing that caught my attention, our news partner CBS says that Joaquin Guzman Lopez, who is the son of El Chapo, that he was somehow in on the operation, or that he may have voluntarily handed himself in. Can you tell us a bit more about sort of what might be going on there?
Well, there's several versions, but the one that you're talking about is the fact that Mayo Zambada was lured not to Texas. You mentioned that it was El Paso, Texas, and it's not your fault because the Attorney General of the United States mentioned Texas. It was actually St. Teresa, New Mexico. It was in the southern part of New Mexico where the aircraft landed yesterday. So it's it's a situation where there's a possibility that he was lured. It could have been the pilot. It could have been the Joaquin Guzman Lopez that actually did it. But Mayo Zambada, one of his greatest fears was always being apprehended and then sent to the United States.
And now that has come to pass. You mentioned that it is in some ways a game of whack-a-mole, that while these two leaders have been apprehended today and will sort of have their day in court, do you think that the other cartel leaders will be kind of jostling now to sort of fill their place? And will we see a reduction in the fentanyl that gets imported from Mexico?
I don't think you're going to see a reduction in the fentanyl because the cartel remains intact. And it's not only them, but you also have a very, very powerful and very violent drug organization by the name of Jalisco New Generation Cartel. You have the Familia Michoacana. You have the Gulf Cartel. There's many others producing fentanyl and also methamphetamine, synthetic drugs. And the cartels are starting to move into synthetic drugs. It's much cheaper to manufacture them. They make much more money, whereas if they have plant-based products, they can be eradicated, then they have to wait till the next growing cycle.